the many controversies of Helmut Marko when Ishak Hadjar crashed out in the formation lap in his Grand Prix debut in Australia. I felt like crying for the kid myself. A lifelong dream had been achieved. All his hard work had paid off and he was making his Formula 1 debut. And then he met the wall and goodbye debut. Many 20-year-olds would cry from a mixture of disappointment and frustration. Hell man, I'm in my 40s, I think I would cry. And I believe many fans who saw the young man break down felt a lot of sympathy for him. Many, but of course not the man called Marko. He felt a chance to say something controversial and make his PR team work for their money when he said to ORF that Hadjar had, and I quote, put on a tearful show, and then added, and I quote again, that was a bit embarrassing, end quote. Of course, that ignited a furious online battle, but the Markster is of course no stranger to controversy, and I thought it a wise idea to have a look at some of the many controversies of Helmut Marko. Do you actually know what Helmut Marko does at Red Bull? I don't. Is he Spice Boy Horner's boss? Was he the late Mr. Mateschitz' eyes and ears and what now since the passing of Red Bull's brilliant leader a couple of years ago? Officially, I understand his title is Motorsport Advisor. At Red Bull and at Visa, MasterCard, Cash Grab, Banking App, Moving, ATM, somehow Red Bull have a second team, RB2 team. So all I can gather is he has lots of power and uses this to cause a lot of controversy. Pretty much every time poor old Christian Horner fails to stop him from opening his mouth. For those who think the second most controversial Austrian of the last 100 years, yes, that strange little man with a mustache was more controversial, is an idiot, you are surely mistaken. Actually, Helmut Marko graduated from the University of Graz in 1967 with a doctorate in law. This is no fool, this is an intelligent man. An accomplished motor racing driver, he made his Formula 1 debut in 1971. But at the 1972 French Grand Prix, debris from the march of Ronnie Peterson crashed through his visor, leaving Marko blinded permanently in the left eye, ending his racing career at only 29 years of age. Marko has been employed at Red Bull since about 1990 and as head of Red Bull's driver development program. So I'm going to prefer to call him Head Bull. He oversaw the development of drivers such as Seb Vettel, Daniel Ricciardo, Carlos Sainz Jr., Pierre Gasly, and Max Verstappen. His F1 graduates have won more than 120 Grand Prix between them. He is apparently contracted to the parent brand of Red Bull though, and not to either of the Formula 1 teams. So I think Christian Horner can pretty much do nothing about him then. Back in 2020, when Black Lives Matter was crashing through the world, the likes of Lewis Hamilton stated that he would take a knee pre-race in support of the movement. Personally, I prefer to separate politics and sport, but if the man feels so strongly about it, then let him do it. Marko, however, was quoted as saying, if Lewis wants, he can take a knee at Austria. Max is well prepared to take the win. He has been training and he is eager to get the season started. End quote. Before you react, listen, I'm almost done with this. Lewis was triggered immediately, responding with, and I quote, this is a long one, so just stick with me to the end of the quote. Helmut, it deeply saddens me that you consider fighting for equal treatment of black people and people of color a distraction. I'm actually quite offended. A distraction for me was fans showing up in blackface to taunt my family on race weekends. A distraction for me was the unnecessary and additional adversity and unfair treatment I faced as a child, teen, and even now due to the color of my skin. I hope this speaks volumes to the few people of color you do have on your team about your priorities and how you view them. Wake up, the sport needs to change, end quote. The best part? The alleged statement by Marko turned out to be false and posted by troll accounts. So one of the biggest Helmut Marko controversies wasn't even him. Back to the present though, and in 2025 the two RB2 drivers, Tsunoda and Hadjar, have not been spared Marko's tongue. Yes, the man comes from a different time, but sometimes maybe he should just not talk. Maybe. About Yuki was reported as saying, and I quote, "Yuki isn't the typical Japanese like Iwasa, who bows 5 times and apologizes for wanting to say something. Yuki Tsunoda says what he wants," end quote. Hadjar, he said, was, and I quote, "has a southern temperament," end quote. Of course, this triggered every liberal, woke keyboard ninja in the northern hemisphere and once more caused 300 heart attacks to his poor PR team. This was of course not the first potentially racist sounding, see how carefully I'm wording this, potentially racist sounding thing Marko was alleged to have said. A year or two ago he laid into poor Sergio Perez, who was struggling to match Max at Red Bull, and he said, let's remember that he is South American, so he is not as focused as Max Verstappen or Sebastian Vettel was, said Marko, and of course all hell broke loose. Even Christian Horner was quoted as saying, "He's not part of Red Bull Racing, that is why we did not put out a statement." You know what the best part about what he said was? Perez is from Mexico. That's in North America, not South America. Going back to 2020, and I'm quoting an article on gpblog.com, and I quote, "In an interview with Road and Track, the Austrian opens up, among other things, about his famous COVID-19 statement during the early days of the pandemic. He was keen to send drivers and teams to a camp where they would intentionally contract COVID and build up immunity to the virus. Since COVID is also known to be unexpectedly deadly to healthy people, this statement was not appreciated by all. I was serious. Doctors believed once you had it, it's over. That you can get it a second and third time wasn't known then, and we have young, strong people. It's like a flu. Imagine if Verstappen would have got it last year at the wrong moment. The championship would have been gone if he had to miss a race or two," said the then 79-year-old advisor, end quote. Speaking about being Max Verstappen's teammate, in the same article on gpblog.com, Marko said, and I quote once more, "At some stage you have to recognize there is someone who is special, and it's just not possible to beat him. It's my job to make them understand that. Is that cruel? I don't think so," end quote. The man must be a joy at Christmas parties and great for the morale of the team, or maybe not. And with that, we've reached the end of this video. Thank you for watching, and hopefully subscribing to the channel and liking the video. See you soon. God bless and goodbye.